of the most interesting things was to talk the old-timers who had played in Italy or where these were started. You know, they had played the first performance of the most famous ones, and then there was an oboe player, and just like in symphony, oboists. I don't know what we would do without an oboist, because they start things, and they're so loud that the flutes can't be heard, and that was a big problem with me. My mother said, everybody has that. Don't forget that. Everybody has that problem. Every flute player has the same problem you have, and lots of them play loud, but they can't play softly, and then you're hated by everybody else because you're trying to drown them out. And oboes and trombones and those heavier instruments can easily do that. They get their way, and they don't know anything that's going on compared to the oboist or any kind. Oh, and I was engaged, and we didn't get married to an oboist. And he had a teacher, a Frenchman, and he said, Doriot, you need him so. I know you like Mr. Legal, that was the Chicago Symphony flutist, but you really should study with my teacher. He teaches. I said, listen, I can play softly too, and that's just as necessary, in fact more necessary than anything else. But I thought to myself, you see, they're right. But my mother had a big tone, just like a singer with a big voice. They have it easy. They can take care of themselves. When somebody's off and they know it, you know, they could just turn and keep singing a few notes, and it changes the whole thing. The orchestra gets together, and then they're not lost anymore. Well, we thought that we would probably be a flute and oboe team in some big symphony. You know, that was our wish. But he really didn't. He thought I was. Well, I don't know. I took lessons from he taught singers because he was a singer in Belgium. He was a Belgian, not French, but he spoke, of course, they speak French in Belgium. And for most of his life, he taught singers and oboists, and woodwind players, and he knew a great deal about the flute. And I thought, I wish you could hear my mother tell me how she got that strong tone. She was very, very strong, and I never got that. But also,
you had a very strong sound.
Oh, I do. Yes, I coached myself with that secretly, or whatever I could do, so that I wouldn't be drowned out. No, I wouldn't. That's true. But anyway, this Debrochet, that was his name, and he was an oboe, and I knew him because my aunt, my mother's youngest sister, went to California. She wanted to live there, and her husband was a doctor, and he became president of one of the big hospitals in the hospital system of Los Angeles, which includes Pasadena, where they lived. He was the head of that, and he played the cello, and he sang, and they had a son who was one of the most beautiful boy sopranos. I'd never heard anything like that before. Well, but he was a little thwarted. He never matured. I think finally he matured, and then he died. And his parents were much older, so his mother was trying to prepare him how he could take care of himself, or find some of their adult friends that agreed to look in on him and help him find a good income tax person to help him do, because he really wasn't very bright, but he was very musical, and he could remember so many, and that was wonderful, because usually those people that were immature could not remember anything, and he knew all of his lessons very, very well. And anyway, I studied with him. He never thought much of me, and I think he felt that George was that oboe player. Well, George had a typically French sound, which is very thin, more like that, you know, and not very pretty. But George was opposite. He was quite brilliant as a scholar. He could, and he was very good with languages and so many things he could do. But his father died early. He became almost a mama's boy. But anyway, everything worked out because we decided we weren't going to get married. And he said, but please, he said, promise me. I said, what? You'll study with my teacher. He said, you need it so badly. And it isn't for me, you're playing. It's for yourself. He said, if you could understand some of the things I had to work so hard with him, he said, there's no stopping you. And he said, you're going to end up much better than I am. I thought that was amazing that he said that, because, but he felt that way. And I said, oh, all right, I promise you. And he said, go tomorrow. He's waiting to see you. He's getting everything lined up of what he's going to teach you. He said, nobody's ever been treated that way. I'm really jealous of you. He asked me so many questions about you. And why are you good at this and not good at that? I don't know. Well, I could never find my way on the piano. Just couldn't do it. And my sister, of course, it was really hard for me because she was prodigious. And she went to college and go a couple of years, and then she'd go to another college, and they all thought she was very, very brilliant. That was all she was. But she cried all the time, and I didn't cry at all. I thought, that's one thing I can do better than my sister. I can be brave. I'm not going to try to get anything with tears. I have respect for people, children that act like that. I'm just not going to do that. And I don't care how hard it is. I'm not going to break into tears, and that's very hard, because really the conductors, in some ways they're so gentlemanly to women, and in other ways they're so awful for the same reason. They don't know what to do about these women. And my father was really, he didn't know how to handle Betty, and he didn't know how to handle, but one thing was sure, she was brilliant. And my daughter is far more brilliant than I am. It's amazing. He taught me, I can't tell you how to make a rubato. Nobody even knows what a rubato is, usually. I don't know why they don't teach these things. They only teach them to singers because they're doing the leading role, and they have to know exactly how. It's a mathematics thing. You have to figure on your time. And I did it, and he just loved teaching me, because he'd said, there, I knew you could do it. And he was terribly strict, but he was a very gentle man, very. And I loved him. And he said, and Doriot, he's got a terrible wife, and she'll do everything to tear you down, to rob you of your she doesn't like to have brilliant students. And I'm glad he told me that. He didn't have to do that. But we never had any terrible disagreements. We thought we were going to get married very early. Thank goodness we didn't. So I had this teacher who said, when you study with me, we're going to study all the etudes. And he said, you don't know how to play fast. You don't know how to control yourself when you play fast. Well, he said it so quickly and so clearly. That's all I needed, was just that one lesson. The rest of it, he would watch me and say, no, yes, that's right. and he was so thrilled, that I would get through. And anyway, they had impossible tempi, very, very fast and very difficult. But I made them all because I figured that I was going to practice them until I get them right. And I'm going to start out very slowly, and if I don't, and they had some crazy tempi that were very, very fast, and my teacher said, that's theoretical. You don't have to play that. Play it faster than you start out, maybe twice as fast, you could say, but not more than that. And he said, and don't be afraid to play the fast things slower. And you will play it fast. He said, you have a very good set of fingers. And the thing is that I was very unhappy in high school. I just turned to my practice. And so I'd go there every other week. Every 2 weeks I'd go to Chicago. And then I'd take the elevator to Evanston, where he lived. Almost all he said was, all right, let's hear you play it. And don't worry about mistakes. Just don't worry about it. Maybe we don't have to do anything about it. So do the best you can, and let's see what you did with it. And, well, after about 2 weeks, no, it was every 2 weeks I went for a lesson. So, all right, every month then, at the end of a month, I found I could play much faster. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these things weren't really hard at all. Like Till Eulenspiegel, it's very difficult, very technical. But it doesn't stay difficult if you stay slow, very slowly, and get everything just right, and then take it a little bit faster, until you go. I never had any difficulty with any technical thing that I could remember. But if I made a rhythmic mistake, he said, look out. He said, sooner or later, you're going to play the wrong rhythm for 2 weeks, and then you come up here, and you don't know what's gotten into you. And he said, that's because you made a mistake and you didn't practice it over slowly again to do this. Anyway, he was very, very nice, but he never said anything just to cheer me up. He would say, fine, very fine, and that was about it. But I could ask him things. I said, sometimes I get lost, and he says, oh, welcome to the club. That was very nice, you know. Yes. And I thought he would never get lost.
So,
yeah.
So who heard your audition in Boston? Was Mr. Munch there all the way through? Or?
Well, you know, besides Boston, well, no, it wasn't Boston. My interest in I wasn't going to get it just right away. Well, anyway, sometimes I would play much slower, but I noticed that certain things, it's very hard to conduct with your hand, and they would slow down, especially if they were old men. Mm-hmm. They never got too fast, but if they did, then they lost control of the orchestra. Mm-hmm. And that's why conductors do get lost. Mm-hmm. They don't get lost, but they lose contact, and they lose, what they could lose is their emotional. You're graduating, the man's going to kill somebody at the end of the opera. Well, you get closer, then you pull back, and and then you start all over again. And and it's all there, written in the plot. And he said, well, just do the best you can, but never compromise. If you have a hard fingering, slow down for it, or even pretend you're going to slow down, but you don't. Mm-hmm. And then the conductor has more control. He didn't ever really told me, but I realized the way he taught me, that he told me all these intimate things about conductors. For instance, that they're human beings. I really found that out all by myself. But it was wonderful. And always at the end, he always said, "Fine," and he was all grins, And there were very few things that I couldn't do when I left him. Mm-hmm. And he said, you will find a way. He said, and don't feel discouraged. We all feel discouraged sometimes. Mm-hmm. And he said, but I would suggest you don't tell anybody about it. Mm-hmm. Or if you do, tell somebody who's not a musician, maybe another girl, or somebody that could keep your things to themselves.